Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Secord, and I am on the advisory board for the Salazar Center, and I was also on the planning committee for this meeting. I live on an island about a half-hour float plane flight southwest of here, and if you're not from around here, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the BC coast. Before we get going on the whole meeting, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded homeland and territory of the Musqueam Nation, here where the UBC campus lies today. And to get us going in the right way, I would like to introduce Councillor Alec Guerin from the Musqueam Indian Band to welcome us to this territory and to this conversation. Alec.
Musqueam Nasiya Tolnaqa Konasqui Tanitanat Musqueam Ai Tanashquelowin Quants E Quatsnala Heidsepka de Swallop Quathami Hui Tana Hunetas Amit Sep Kut Huilum Etana Hunaas Tatas Musqueamats Tammo Tishwaamits Tas Hankaminam Kan Siatolitzen, Heichka. My friends and relatives, good morning. Oh, we can do call and response? I love that. You're so well-mannered. My ancestral name is Tolnaqa, my English name is Alec Guerin, and I'm from here. I'm from Musqueam, where I'm an elected councillor. It brings me really good feelings to be with you all this morning. Couple of reasons. Actually, show of hands, anybody ever gotten a welcome from me before? Ooh, this is the first room in a long time where not a single hand has gone up, and I love it. The first reason that I'm really happy to be here is my people have been the guardians of the mouth of the Fraser River since time immemorial. What that means is if people wanted to come into the territory, access the lands, the resources, the waterways, they had to first come through us. And if people were coming with open hearts and open minds, a willingness to follow the laws of the land, then one of my ancestors would have welcomed them, saying words very similar to the ones that I just shared with you in my language of Hankaminam. Actually, another question for you. Show of hands, who's been to an event where there's been an Indigenous welcome at all? Cool. That's, I think, all of you. Now, I think that there's a perception that when you get a welcome from someone from a local nation, it's like a cool act of reconciliation. And that's true, but at least in the Musqueam context, it goes beyond that. It's actually a participation in and following of and witnessing of our laws. It's upholding the Musqueam legal tradition, and that's really near and dear to my heart. And I feel so honored to be able to go and do that work out on our territory. Second reason I'm really happy to be here is the same reason that you're all here. You know, the reason that my ancestors since time immemorial have been the guardians and stewards of this land is because we want to maintain it and improve it for future generations. Basically, every single teaching that has been handed down to me and has been handed down through the generations is just about making a better world for our children, our grandchildren, and so on and so on. It's been difficult lately to do that. When we go out onto the land, we're always learning. You know, I'm taught that the world is our classroom. We didn't have academic institutions prior to contact. We had life. And every facet of life was an opportunity to learn. And you would learn different things depending on the different activities you were doing. If you were going fishing, you'd learn different oral history than if you were weaving a basket or a hat. And as a result of lack of access, but also the resources going away, a lot of those opportunities are lost, and a lot of the knowledge is lost alongside it. So the work that each and every one of you are doing and the important conversations you are having today, and I understand over the coming days, it's really near and dear to my heart, and I raise my hands to each and every one of you for the thought and intention that you put into your lives in this way. And with that, I'll just say I hope everything goes really well. The conversation is booming, and it's my great honor and privilege, on behalf of my ancestors, my elders, and my people, to welcome you to the unceded territory of the Hunt-Communum speaking people of Musqueam. Oh, my mic died for a second there. Of the Hunt-Communum speaking people of Musqueam. Siatolitsan Haichka.
All right, well, thank you, Councillor Guerin, for a perfect and essential way to ground us in place and get us going before we dive into a couple days of substantive and I hope fun discussions with each other. And I was reflecting a lot on anticipating this trip during the last 3 weeks of travels in 4 of the republics in Central Asia. I've just come back from Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, and was thinking a lot about what that part of the world has to do with this part of the world. And because comparative learning is what a thing like this meeting is all about. And so I was thinking, okay, big landscapes, lots of mountains, lots of rivers, lots of wildlife, lots of resource extraction, borders that have been shifting and contested over decades, centuries, and even millennia, place-based tribal peoples that have been both settled and nomads for thousands of years, and colonial invasions by various empires in that part of the world, including Russians, Chinese, Mongols, Persians, and others. So totally fascinating. And then to bring it a little more up to date, the post-Soviet governance there is an interesting mix of emerging democracy, dictatorship, and cult of personality, something we have none of here in North America these days. So really fun to think comparatively. So a little bit about the symposium itself before we get into the sessions, and about the Salazar Center if you're not that familiar with it. So the Salazar Center's official mission is to spark conservation, innovation, and action to secure a thriving future for the lands, waters, and life, including human, here in North America. And the center is intentional about bringing people together across borders, cultures, and sectors, walks of life, to meet shared conservation challenges. And at its core, it's sort of an incubator of people and ideas aiming to transform human relationships with nature on this continent and promote healthy societies and economies, which of course are intertwined with narrower conservation and biodiversity objectives. The Salazar Center is also a very young organization. It's only been around for 5 or 6 years, and its founder, Ken Salazar, will be with us tomorrow, who until recently was the U.S. Ambassador to Mexico and previously Secretary of the Interior under Obama. So the symposium that the center hosts every year or two aims to convene people like you, thought leaders, changers of things in the real world, conservation disruptors, advocates, funders, policymakers, all to work together to grow a community of practice based on the best ideas from places right across the continent. And the center sees creating a more diverse and representative community of practice as essential to elevating the best ideas, the most innovative practices right across the continent, and that's central to enduring outcomes for nature and people. I personally am excited, having worked on the planning committee, about the speaker lineup and kind of the diversity of session design that we have here, which hopefully will be more engaging than typical conferences, which are day after day of trios of talking heads on panels. So we hope it's a little more fun than that. And as you're all aware, putting together a conference like this takes a hell of a lot of work. And so I want to thank each and every person on the planning committee, partners and advisors on the ground, and especially here in BC. And I also want to thank the sponsors for the conference, and especially the lead sponsors, Doris Duke Foundation and RBC. There we go. And see, you're up there, Andre. So, the symposium and the theme. So, at the heart of the founding of the Salazar Center was the idea that North America as a continent is an important, special, unique part of the planet, and that by thinking and working at a continental scale instead of a national scale or a sub-regional scale, we can achieve more for nature and people. So that's sort of the vision, and I would sort of editorialize that we tend to think of North America as the big three countries, Canada, US, and Mexico nowadays. But if we think about the continent more broadly, culturally and ecologically, we can also include the 7 countries of Central America and a whole bunch of countries and territories in the Caribbean, and of course the world's largest island of Greenland. So let's think about it as kind of a bigger neighborhood, even though most of us live in one of those big 3 countries. It has also probably not escaped your attention that North America is kind of at a time of flux, of change, of dynamism, of pivot right now at this point in history. Not least because the 3 big countries all have new leaders in the last 6 months or so, and those 3 new leaders bring a variety of approaches and perspectives and behaviors when it comes to policy and governance and decision-making and leadership and science. This rapid political change has the potential to be unsettling, to undermine institutions and systems and resources that we're all kind of used to being in place for all of our lives, mainly since the war for sure. And those are sort of resources and frameworks that we've come to rely on and lean on and assume will be there to reverse biodiversity loss and help communities. And it kind of feels like the sands are shifting under our feet a little bit. So that'll be part of the tenor of the conversation. Those 3 leaders, by the way, none of them was in place at the time this conference began to be planned, more than 6 months ago. And those shifts do represent real challenges, but they don't change the urgency of what we're trying to do here as regards biodiversity conservation in communities. So we need all hands on deck from every sector and walk of life and society and type of institution to help solve the big problems and even to sort of define or redefine the problems as they are rapidly evolving. And we need big, ambitious thinking, change, and smart behaviors, not just from governments and conservation groups and indigenous governments, but also from economic, financial, and other sectors that have a hand in shaping the future that we want. And we need to keep nature and communities at the center of those discussions, even as they tend to lean into matters like tariffs. So that's what we're going to explore over the next couple of days.